You can. It. Howdy.
Mayor Meyer,
Here.
Vice Mayor Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Bruner,
Here.
Commissioner Matheson,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll begin this evening with comments by the city commissioners. Commissioner Bruner.
No, only thing is when I got here, the river is just so dirty. It's so nasty. That's it.
Commissioner Matheson.
I agree, Commissioner Bruner. I think all of us do. Touching on the river, the Lake Okeechobee has stopped rising. We're still getting discharges. I was engaged in a LOSUM PDT meeting last Friday. I did have to miss the last hour, but Mr. Hogarth, attended the entire meeting, and they're formulating LOSM, the new modeling schedule for lake management. And basically, we're at the point now, we are moving forward where they took about 120,000 models, ran them through a computer program or two separate programs, and whittled that down to about 27,000 plus or minus models.
Whittled down, yeah.
A lot of technical talk, but the next phase of that whittling down is adding in all the interested parties' performance measures that we've suggested. Stuff like, how discharges affect our oysters, our seagrass, our offshore reefs, sediment, turbidity, recreation, everything, as well as irrigation south of the lake. So the next few months, as that goes from 27,000 down to hopefully a more manageable number, we'll start to see how LOSM is shaping up. On another note, I was on a periodic scientist call with the Corps last Tuesday. They're not hosting one tomorrow, but they will next weekend. Frankly, there's not a lot of hope in sight with the lake discharges. We are just below in lake height where we were this time of year in 2017. And I think we all know what happens. You have to look at the lake height as a cyclical annual thing. 2017 led us to 2018, where there was, toxic algae in Lake Okeechobee, but the Corps had no choice but to discharge to lower the lake level. So right now, the Corps is in a position with everything south of the lake, water still flowing from the Kissimmee into the lake. And I keep literally praying that it's going to stop raining. And last night it rained at my house, and I'm sure it rained at everyone else's. We need it to dry up so that maybe we can press the Corps to give us a 5-day breather window to let our salinity bounce back up. But the Corps' position on the calls, from what I gather, is if we're still getting local rain and discharges out of our own basin, and they stop, lowering the lake to reach our argument of having the lake lowered by next wet season to a manageable, so we can go through the summer again, every day is precious. And our salinity here in our estuary might not bounce back up if it's still raining here. So kind of the position I'm holding on is we need to unite when we do get the rain to stop over Martin County and really ask for a 5-day window to let our salinity bounce back up. If y'all can catch what I'm saying. But right now, since it's still raining, if we think about, next June 30th, we want the lake to be a lot lower. And right now, the predictions, if it stays where we are, we're not getting anywhere near 11 feet. And that's very scary. But I'll continue to keep you updated on that. Some talks that I've had with Rivers Coalition, Friends of the Everglades, Congressman Mass offices. We may, and I've offered the use of the Flagler Center possibly on December 17th. Congressman Mass and some of those nonprofits, the Indian River Keeper as well, are interested in kind of hosting sort of a roundtable with Congressman Mast, Representative Oberdorf, Harrell, and some of our state representatives. And I've offered the use of the Flagler Center as a city day. I explained to them sunshine so that we could all maybe attend, but we wouldn't be speaking. Depending on COVID, they may or may not use the Flagler Center. It may just be all virtual, but the talks are ongoing right now. But that's an update on the river and our water issues.
Is that when the Army Corps is coming?
The Army Corps is coming on the 14th.
Okay.
And I had, and some of our representatives may come, and this would kind of be fitting if they are in town for the Corps meeting only a few days later. They could all maybe meet and discuss, their priorities and how we can fix the situation that we're in South Florida with our waterways. we had a excellent Thanksgiving turnout. I thank everyone for helping serve food last Thursday. I thank Mr. Campenny for encouraging all of us personally to come and attend. And especially thank all of our officers who volunteered their time serving with us. And of course, Thelma Washington and all those at Gertrude Walden. We want to do everything we can to make sure no one goes hungry, and enjoying a meal like that is very special. I did do a ride along with Officer Jacobson last week, and I wanted to thank Officer Rudiger and Officer Jacobson for setting that up. And, it's interesting to see that perspective, and I'm always amazed, how well they can see everything. It makes me realize how blind I am sometimes when I'm riding with an officer who's watching 5 different things go on at the same time. Other than that, unfortunately, I have to mention that any day or two, we're going to hit a milestone of about 1 million cases here in Florida for COVID. Literally any day or two. And so I just want to stress, a few days ago, Sewell's Point adopted a mask mandate suggestion policy. It's very similar when I read it to what we adopted, early on in this process. But what the city did adopt is still in effect. We are, strongly encouraging everyone to wear masks in the city of Stuart, and especially on city property. I know I would much rather wear a mask than have our governor be forced to put in a situation to close a business. And if I have to wear this mask to keep a business open, that's a sacrifice I'm happy to make, and I know most other residents are. I believe those are the end of my comments. But go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McDonald?
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. It's different than ones we've had in the past, and hopefully it'll be different than the ones we're going to have in the future. Hopefully we'll be back to normal next year. But keeping that in mind, the spirit of Thanksgiving, Commissioner Matheson mentioned serving Thanksgiving dinner last Thursday. That was a great event. We gave away, I think, 110 turkeys. Does that sound right?
I got a little report, so I'll get.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So, but there was, well, Tom will tell us later how many turkeys we served, but we served a lot of turkeys. We had a lot of people. There was a lot of good camaraderie. I really want to especially thank our police department. The police department was out in force. They're helping with that and with this event. And without their help, it would have been the amount of labor that they brought. It would have been hard to keep up. So thank you to everybody in the police department. You guys are doing a great job. Couple other things on fun notes. There's a lot of people have been very sad this year about this wasn't fun about canceling the Christmas parade, which was done by VNA, but a couple different organizations. The Martin County Realtor Association has stepped up and they're having an event in the park involving Christmas trees, where there's going to be Christmas trees decorated, placed in the park for people to go and view and be socially distanced and have it's going to be some passive Christmas recreation. So I'm very excited that I had the opportunity to work with the Realtor Association to help get that done. And I believe that starts on the 12th of December. And then I don't remember the date, but the police department is going to have an event, and maybe somebody can help me with the date on the police department's Christmas event. 22nd. So the police department is having an event in Flagler Park, and from best I can tell, it's going to be similar to the Halloween event. And that was a fabulous event, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm looking forward to seeing the exciting things that our police department's putting together for our community. Just goes to show that every time we need to, our police department needs, we need something. The police department steps up, whether it's Thanksgiving dinner, or if it's a Christmas event or Halloween event. So another really great thing. And then one last thing, I did receive a call this week from a business owner regarding stormwater rates on commercial property. And I spoke with Mr. Dias about it. And when I found out how much some of the commercial property owners were paying, if it was accurate, there's not much that we need to have our stormwater rates, but we definitely need to just take that into consideration when we're setting them. So, because I believe it was thousands and thousands of dollars of increase for one property. So over the year. So that's all I have today, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Clark?
Thanks. I'd like to echo the comments of everyone with regard to the river and with regard to mask and all the things that Troy said, but I did have a couple of things. We had a ribbon cut in for what is considered restart or new start or whatever it is to at least get in some combined affordable housing in the city of Stuart. And I'm hoping that when that project gets done, it will start to see some different shape in Stuart. So that was a Harbor Grove project, and I am glad to see that those people are moving forward with that project. I was going to bring up the mask thing that Sewell's Point did and know that we have ours and that we still need to stress and push and do something, maybe do another little campaign online to just remind people or make sure that the marquee at 10th Street and other places are utility bills, whatever it takes to get the message out. If we need to do a mask up just to support or to show that we're interested in, I know that we have the rules with regard to the governor, but there are some cities and communities that are pushing and asking the governor and the legislature, because we know that we just don't have the hospital space in the room for when people get sick. And I don't want to get sick, and I'm hoping that most of us won't get sick. So if we need to do something or update or say something, I think we need to, as a body, either do something stronger or try to join in with the people in Miami and other places where those mayors and cities are asking the governor to provide some relief so that people at our level, we can do more things in our city. I know that enforcement was one of the big issues with all this mask thing. So I'm hoping that everybody's trying to follow the rules as much as possible. But we just have to have some rules. So that's a big issue. Thanksgiving, I wish everyone a great Thanksgiving. It's tough. It's not going to be a travel and family as usual for most people. Some people may still have that opportunity. And I'm also just thankful for Thelma Washington and Officer Bazio and all of those whom he coordinated at the police department, all of the different personnel who helped out and the churches and the community, truly community effort. So we just want to continue doing that, even though we had to change the rules a little bit with the social distancing, but I think a lot of people benefited from that. As Commissioner McDonald mentioned about the park with the Christmas event, I was going to ask about that and to see if the city would do anything to support it other than having it in our park, whether it be to, I don't know if it's because I don't know if we want to advertise anything, because I know that we're trying to have it available. At least they're trying to have it available. They have permit to do it. But, you know, we also have to try to make sure that we're not encouraging large crowds in large areas. But I think that it's a good idea to have it as a passive thing and have people come. Does anybody know if that would stop at dusk for that park, or would it go on? Can people go on till any time of night because of the rules of the park?
Vice Mayor, the city is actually working with the realtors side by side. So We're kind of co-sponsoring that event with them. And it will start on the 12th and will end on the 26th. There's going to be tree nodes throughout Memorial Park in which there's spider boxes for electric, and you can accommodate so many trees. And then there'll be pods of these trees. And we extended the time period so that we would discourage people from wanting to come from a one-night activity. That's why you can come with your family at your leisure throughout that entire time period and walk through the Christmas tree forest.
Well, when you say night, it's a dusk park.
Yes.
So for the special permit, does
Well,
it
it's
go
only-
up until 8 or 10?
It's only a dusk park by code, but this is a special event permit.
Right, so when does that special event end at night?
10 o'clock.
10 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
When did you say it started?
It starts at
The 12th.
dusk,
12th.
which is like 5 o'clock-ish kind of, and it goes.
Jim, didn't you tell me there was a city pod area for city
Yes,
trees? So
there
if
is,
commissioners want to do a tree?
Yes, so we have the Community Services Department will be doing a tree. Public Works will be doing a tree, or the new engineering department will be doing a tree. I'd like to know whether or not that the city commission would like to do a tree of some sort as well. So that would be nice.
let's
We
do
just
one.
need to be able to kind of
have cutouts of
coordinate how that
ourselves.
might get built. And
By city
and-
commission, you mean the community services department?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just take that one right there.
So basically, we'd have 2 trees. No.
I would love to help. I would love to,
No,
I
but
would love to decorate a tree.
I would like to be able to
Get stuff.
reserve a spot then next to ours, and we'll have a city area in which there'll be several trees. Whoever wants to participate, I pitched the development department and everybody else, so we'll see who wants to do it. But I'm glad, and I'll help you with that.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Thank you, Jim. I have one more comment, Mr.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
So, Mr. City Manager, if we do get the vaccine in our community through the health department and whatever sources, I know that we have our police and fire and frontline people. Do we have like a hierarchical plan at the city of Stuart to try to get
I have
our
a,
employers in there, employees?
I have a vaccination implementation plan conference
Okay.
call tomorrow morning.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you since Friday, but that's fine. I am, okay. I think that covers me, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, happy Thanksgiving this week to everybody. I know it's going to be different for many families. It is certainly going to be different for mine. Even though we're limiting it to our already existing in household family members, or those of us that are in our bubbles, we're going to be doing still an outdoor brunch. Hopefully the rain will stay off. But I'm sure it will be nice to be able to get some time, whether in person or on Zoom, with our family members for Thanksgiving. As we gear up for the holiday shopping season, I'm encouraged by some news out of the legislature before session that both House Speaker Sprowls and Senate President Simpson have signaled that they are open to finally closing the online sales tax loophole. We might actually end up getting that through legislature this year, which would be a big boon certainly to the budget, which is going to be suffering at the state, but also a benefit to our local bricks and mortar retailers. Right now, Florida and Missouri, I believe, are the only 2 states which have not modernized to online collection or sales tax collection for online retailers. Although some do collect and remit to the state, they're not required to. It's kind of an honor system. And so many people shop online to avoid paying sales tax, and that makes our local businesses suffer. So I'm hopeful that we can get that the legislature will take that seriously, and I will be pushing our delegation to fight hard for that, and I'll be discussing that with you more as we go through session with the Florida League of Cities. I know Commissioner McDonald had brought up tobacco, and the county commission at last meeting. Many of you may know, Gesundheit, many of you may know that that the county did vote to increase the age to purchase tobacco products from 18 to 21 to be in line with federal law. I would like for us to address that and to potentially see, I mean,
I can bring back a draft
Yes.
ordinance on it, but I would ask that you give me the diligence to wait till January because our December meeting is already going to be the longest December meeting we've ever had.
You doing that just for me?
I didn't do it. The city manager did that.
That's
just for you.
fine. From what I understand, the county ordinance won't go into effect until the February 1st anyway. So we'll
So we
have a
can do
little
2
time
meetings in
in
January.
January, but
Yeah,
I'd like for us, after speaking with now Chairwoman of the Board of County Commissioners, Hetherington, it would be better for everybody, I think, if there was some uniformity between the city and
I
county.
do want to say that I am opposed to the licensing requirement of it, and I will speak with you guys about that. in
Okay.
More details.
Yes, Commissioner.
When you're through, I had one more thing that I forgot.
Sure thing. So going back quickly to the sales tax and the holiday season and shopping season, I've been speaking with Candace Callahan of Stuart Main Street and Rachel Snyder, and I really loved the Downtown Stuart Bucks program. And I was told by Rachel today on the phone that it was a huge success, that they sold out within, I think, 2 weeks of all of their bucks, and that the merchants really loved it. And I don't know if it's something where we might be able to, I know it would be maybe from the CARES Act business support side, that's more administered from the county. Or if, we can help just continue to get the word out or be a resource for Main Street and DBA to encourage people to buy local this holiday season, to support the local businesses that are struggling for gift buying. I think however we can do that, I really would like for us, if it requires having a D&D item on it, or just each of us individually working with Main Street and with the DBA to help figure out how we can, whether it's electronic signboards or some signage throughout the city to shop local, and really hammer that point home that our businesses really need support right now. Regarding masks, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been hearing from concerned residents. As we look at the numbers, we are increasing yet again in Martin County and across the state. I'm encouraged to hear Commissioner Matheson and Vice Mayor Clark talk about talk about some ideas around that. Unfortunately, we all know that the governor's executive order 2024, I believe it was, 20-244, quote, suspended the collection of fines and penalties associated with COVID-19. Some governments have taken that literally to mean they can still have ordinances and mask orders, but that they just won't go and collect the fines, but they'll still enforce their orders. I know that we still have our hands tied with regard to our ability to do that if the county doesn't. But I've talked to Commissioner Campy, and I was surprised, frankly, that it didn't come up at their last meeting. But I think we need to be prepared to just perhaps go down that route again with the county, and if they do, support them. If you believe in that, I certainly do. It's only going to get worse. And to Commissioner Matheson's point, if it takes wearing a mask to prevent a lockdown or the closure of businesses, I'd rather take that route. Our hands are tied, unfortunately, so much with this, but we've got to do better. The final thing is that, and I'll talk about it at our commission action item, the legislative priorities. The Florida League of Cities just finally ratified its legislative action agenda. I won't disturb this too much, but we are working on a draft resolution to share that I'll be bringing back that affirms the city's commitment to the Florida League of Cities policy priorities, which many of them are the same as we have on the agenda item tonight. but I don't know if it makes sense for us to hold off just a minute and maybe combine the two or not. Maybe we'll talk about that at that item. And that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I just got a text message and I just wanted to inform the commission of some sad news. A former mayor, Sue Hershey, her husband, Judge Hershey, passed away last night.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
So he was a longtime judge in our town and in Martin County. And of course, his wife, Sue,
He was
served
also
on
the
not only
mayor of
school
Stuart on
boards.
multiple
He
occasions.
was
Pardon?
mayor.
Judge Hershey was also the mayor of Stuart on
Stuart.
multiple
Yeah, she was,
occasions.
was he the mayor as well?
Yes.
Oh, he was too. I didn't realize he had served as well.
and
So-
his wife?
Yes,
Yeah, both of them. So anyways, I just heard that just a minute ago, so it just came through. So I just wanted to,
Wow.
if we can keep Sue Hershey in our prayers.
Yes.
Our deep condolences. And I know that Miss Bruner is waiting, but on the same line, I was going to say that the husband of the mayor of Fort Pierce, Linda Hudson, has just recently passed away.
Yes. Our condolences. Commissioner Bruner.
Yes, I will sure keep them in my prayer. They were both very kind to me when I ran for city commissioner, and I'll never forget it. What I wanted to say, I talked to David, our manager, a few days ago, but I forgot to get back with you, David. And it was regarding Tyler Treadway. I had read last week that he's either retired or resigned from the Stuart News. And when we all started rallying here over the river in 2013, it's been about 7 years where we just got stronger and stronger, and all the different elected officials would come here. Every year, it was just horrible every summer with the rains and everything, and stronger and more powerful. And the Stuart News was, I don't know what we would have done without the Stuart News, because they were writing every day on the river, every day. And this went on probably for a year, I believe, or maybe 2 years, somebody would be writing. But Tyler's been writing on that river ever since for at least once a week. And I would like for us to send him a letter or something for all that he did for our river. It's just, it never stopped. It was wonderful. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the Stuart News. So I don't know. I just wanted to run it by you all and tell me what you think. We could sign it and from the city and just somehow write it up. Somebody's a good writer, to how much we appreciated him and all that he's done.
Does anybody else?
I agree 100%. I have enjoyed, I've had numerous conversations with Tyler over the past few years. He's incredibly knowledgeable about the situation, and I try to pry pieces of advice from him, and I'm usually unsuccessful, but perhaps I will be a little
Yes.
more now.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time I had asked him, what do you think? And he looked at me and said, Becky, I can't tell you what I'm thinking. And I thought of that the other day. Now he can tell me what he thinks.
Well,
But
Commissioner,
Michael, is there any precedence or any problem with that?
I mean, sending a person that's unemployed a letter is fine.
it sounds like we have a consensus that we'd like to send him a little letter thanking him
can
for
we do that?
his advocacy and work on behalf of the river. That sounds
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Well, I figured out how to put it, the wording.
Thank
We'll
you.
take care of it.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to comments by our city manager, Mr. Dias.
Yes, in the last meeting of the CRA, there was a question about drainage of the Seminole Street project, and unfortunately, we were having some technical difficulties with our consultant. He has sent an email, and the drainage grates, I think it was Mr. Matheson's question, will still be in place so that we'll still flow through the baffle boxes. But in addition, there'll be additional storage capacity under the bricks themselves, or the pavers themselves to store water. The only other thing I have is, I think you've all been sent some upcoming luncheons, one for recognition of our boards, and I think another one for the Treasure Coast League of Cities luncheon. So if you guys could, you can send your responses to Ms. Vickett, and she'll RSVP for you if you would like, if you can attend. And I think the Treasure Coast one is also a induction of the officers, correct? Is that?
It's the installation of officers, and yours truly will be first vice president, and also we'll get to meet the new president of the Florida League of Cities, Ortiz. So I hope that you all come to that holiday luncheon.
Okay,
That's all I have, sir.
okay.
Thank you, sir. Do I see a motion for approval of the agenda as published?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Vice Mayor Clark. Any public comment on our agenda? Any online, please raise your hand. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll have comments from the public. We have 3-minute maximum. I have one green card here. If anybody here would like to make a public comment, please approach Ms. Kindle, collect a green card, fill it out. If you'd like to make public comment on Zoom, please raise your hand. We'll begin with Mr. Campenny. Mr. Tom Campenny.
You can call me Mr. Campenny, it's fine. I just want to give you guys a quick update on the Thanksgiving feed. I want to thank all of you for showing up. It was really, really nice. I want to thank the city manager for walking around quite a bit. He does that so well every year. And
Somebody's got to manage.
I want to thank the police department and Mary Kindle and other city employees for coming. It really made a big, huge difference. It couldn't have been done without so many people. So I have a report here. There were 106 turkeys,
Wow.
26 pans of stuffing, 23 pans of green beans,
Oh my God.
65 sweet potato pies, 10 pound cakes, 4 banana puddings, 28 pans of mashed potatoes.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if this is accurate, but Thelma tells me there's 3,800 plates.
Wow. How many?
3,800.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And Brian
Again, I
Bosio-
don't know if that was an accurate count, but,
And Brian Bosio couldn't keep up with the mashed potatoes.
well, you know,
Typical.
some people are not professional.
Well, I can tell you, when I was sweating really hard delivering those plates in my job I was doing.
That's a
I
lot
would
of
say this.
people.
I just want to thank all of you. I'm sure everyone appreciated it. We had many more people than last year. If this is accurate, 2,000 more than last year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Campenny. Thank you very much. And thanks again to staff, to our police officers, to Gertrude Walden, staff, and to the one and only Ms. Thelma Washington. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Move approval of the consent agenda is published.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Clark and a second by Commissioner Matheson. Any discussion? Any comment on consent? Come on, we're really gonna have a quick meeting tonight? Seeing none, Ms. Kindle, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bruner,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Matheson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. For commission action, item number 3, legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session. Mr. Mortel.
This is resolution number 140-2020, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, authorizing the adoption of legislative, my computer just jumped, priorities. Just got a screen, I'm sorry about that. I can't see the,
Legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session.
thank you.
Mr. Hogarth.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm actually not going to give a dissertation tonight. I'm just going to say whatever
Thank you.
questions you have. It's not a completely exhaustive list. Obviously, during the session, we're going to have a lot more come up that we're going to need to jump on, but this kind of starts us going. The last 2 years have been very limited in the amount of bills that have been passed. So just keep in mind that the speed at which the legislature is going right now is remarkably slow, and I don't expect that to change this year considering COVID again. So
Ben, is
Yep.
the session a March session this year?
it is. And actually, that's a good thing. I probably should clarify. Moving forward, the legislature has made kind of permanent changes to when the session starts. Every even year in perpetuity, you're going to start in January, and then every odd year in March.
And one of the things I just want to say, been working on legislative priorities for years, and I'm so happy to see that we've got these priorities done months in advance. I tell you, there was years that we were in for January sessions, we're in the December meeting discussing legislative priorities. So to have these done in November for March, I think is fabulous. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Matheson, did you have something?
I just want to reiterate what you said earlier in your comments, Mayor, about, hopefully we'll see some movement with the legislator on reforming online sales tax in the state of Florida. I agree with you that would help our local businesses out tremendously if it was more of a balanced playing field on the taxation issue. And again, we'll probably always have water quality as one of our top priorities, but it needs to be there till it gets settled. And thank you for getting them done in an appropriate time.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is a question, I guess, more for you and for Mr. Dias. So the League of Cities, like I said, right now we're drafting a resolution that's going to all of the member cities, to member municipalities that I think would bring here. Some of these are the same. It's also typically the process that the league's actual verbiage, it's short and sweet, is adopted via a resolution. So does it make sense for us to not to wait too long, but does it make sense for us to kind of do it in one combined? I see here in the resolution that it's not like we're mailing this to our legislators.
No,
Or-
typically what we do is when our delegation meets, and I haven't heard when that date's going to be yet because this year was an election and
Right.
they're still trying to figure that out. But we want to have everything ready for them just so we can formally present what our priorities are. And then, of course, we naturally will try to get a document that's better for handing out later on.
Well, what do you think? Is it better for us to have two separate resolutions? One is kind of a perfunctory League of Cities resolution, and the other is.
I mean, personally, I can write 100 resolutions in the legislative session.
No, thank you.
I wouldn't recommend it yet. That's not a problem. So I don't mind kind of bifurcating the issues. I don't know if that will necessarily conflict because we do every year typically have a priority list that's for us. And then we, of course, support what other municipalities have as their priorities
Okay.
with the League of Cities.
And some of our priorities are the League of Cities priorities.
Yeah, a lot of times it aligns like that.
So then
that's where
I think the best thing will then be for us to just go ahead and pass this as is. And since we will be presenting it to the legislative delegation, what we'll do probably is have, depending on when it is, our chair or our body present the city's policies, and then perhaps myself or a representative of the Treasure Coast Regional League could then speak on behalf of those policies. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
in years past, we've actually, and I'm not sure how it's been in the last 2 years, but in years past, we've done resolutions for specific bills
Right.
as well. And I anticipate if there's some bill of great importance that either we support or oppose, that we may do a resolution regarding a specific.
Oh, I'll be bringing lots of resolutions for bills this year.
It's certainly, my recommendation would be for those types of resolutions, if they're state, try to
Right.
get them before the session starts because it's very, very challenging at that point getting one's attention.
Agreed.
If it's federal, any time of the year, feel free to reach out to me about that.
Okay, great. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Commissioner Matheson. Any further discussion? Any public comment on our legislative priorities? Any online, please raise your hand. Jeez, you guys are killing me today. All right, all in favor? Can I do that? Or roll call?
You can do it all.
You can do all
Just
in favor.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no second reading ordinances.
Actually, we have to call each one because they need to be continued to date certain to avoid advertising.
I haven't gotten there
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And item number 4, I'll move to continue it to January 11th pursuant to the agenda request.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to continue to date certain of January 11, 2021 for item number 4 by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Commissioner Matheson. Any public comment on the continuance as requested? Any online? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have item number 5, Wreckers and Vehicle Vessel Towing Amendment. Mr. Mortel.
This is ordinance number 2456-2020, an ordinance of the city of Stuart, Florida, amending the Stuart Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Business, Article 6, Wreckers and Vehicle Towing, to be in accordance with the Florida State Statute for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date, and for other purposes. And I know that the Chief Tuminelli had done this. It's basically just to update with the state statute.
Yeah, so and it was actually Captain Roth who did it, and she's here somewhere if you have questions, but it is, as Mr. Mortel said, just to update the language to be
Move for
compliant with
approval.
state statutes.
It extends the radius to which towing companies can be within the city of Stuart, and it actually gives us more opportunity to do more bidding for other companies.
I have a motion by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Vice Mayor Clark for approval. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Any online? Seeing none, Ms. Kendall, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bruner,
Yes.
Commissioner Matheson,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Item number 6, do I have somebody to,
Move to continue December 14th, 2020 pursuant to the request on the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Vice Mayor Clark to continue to date certain of December 14th, 2020 per staff request for Hidden Key RPUD rezoning. Any public comment on the continuance? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 7, update to our Community Investment Program CIP. Mr. Mortel.
This is ordinance 2458-2020, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan to update the 5-year community investment program included within the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan, providing for the repeal of laws in conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
And not for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. Mortel.
It probably is for other purposes as well.
Right.
For now, it's just an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, for these purposes only.
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
Purposes only, yes, that's correct. Thank you. Steve Mayor for the record, Development Department. Ordinance 2458-2020 is an ordinance amending the city's comprehensive plan, updating the 5-year community investment program, which is an approved CIP from this budget year. This is a first reading of this ordinance. Now, the reason for these type of updates to our capital improvements element is it is in accordance with section 163.32022G of our Florida statutes, that a 5-year schedule of improvements, also known as the Capital Improvement Program or CIP, must be reviewed on an annual basis and updated via an amendment to the Capital Improvements Element or CIE of the city's comprehensive plan. The CIE updates demonstrates the fiscal financeability of the element's goals. This is accomplished by estimating cost of improvements, analysis of city's fiscal capability to finance and construct improvements, and the adoption of financial policies that guide funding. There is also a data analysis section, which includes facility level of service standards for potable water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, drainage, stormwater, and recreation. We also have a policy in our comprehensive plan, which is in the CIE, and it's policy A26, which states that annually the city will prepare an updated 5-year schedule of capital improvements. The process shall include a review of analysis of city's financial condition, and specifically it would contain an updated projection of revenues, which takes into account any changes in potential revenue sources that have been anticipated to fund scheduled improvements. In addition, it will incorporate any new capital improvements needs that have unexpectedly arisen. The analysis shall also include a discussion of any change in improvement, prioritization, and provide a rationale for the change. The schedule of improvements must distinguish between meeting the needs identified as needed to work towards the elimination of existing deficiencies and those improvements that are required to provide facilities for new development. This is the approved CIP for the 2021 fiscal budget year, and the 5-year schedule. Years 2 through 5 are located on that table. It's part of the CIE update. It's the reason what we're doing is to adopt this CIP that we have adopted into our comprehensive plan and provide that to the state for review. We also have financial feasibility as a section of the CIE. Financial feasibility is defined as means that sufficient revenues are currently available or will be available from committed funding sources for the first 3 years, and or will be available from committed or planned funding sources for years 4 and 5 of the 5-year schedule. Committed sources of revenue shall include ad valorem taxes, bonds, state, federal funds, tax revenues, impact fees, and developer contributions. I'm not sure if that's limited. I also believe you probably could include grants. So those are adequate to fund the projected cost of capital improvements. So we do have in our comprehensive plan levels of service standards. They're pretty simple, and they include those facilities I had mentioned before: sanitary sewer, 80 gallons per capita per day for residential, 1,100 gallons annual per day for non-residential. And then you have a total of that for the whole city that we can provide for sanitary sewers. For solid waste, it's 3.5 pounds per capita per day for residential. And then there is a calculation for pounds per square foot per day for non-residential. Drainage facilities has a statement that retention of half of the runoff from a 25-year, 3-day duration storm on parcels greater than 1 acre. And potable water, we have 250 gallons per day per equivalent residential connection. Residential facilities is 3 acres of developed park per 1,000 permanent or seasonal residents. And in transportation, we have a level of service E at peak hour for arterials, except for certain roadways that are mentioned in our comprehensive plan. So we did the analysis in terms of this level of service standards. We do meet those. We demonstrate that we do through various staff level updates, and we provided that level analysis to you, and we'll provide that to the state. Staff recommends approval of the CIE update on first reading. If you have any questions, just send staff's presentation. We do have our director of finance, and also I believe Public Works is here too if you have any questions specific to the CIP.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner McDonald and a second by Commissioner Bruner, and I'm sorry, not so fast. I have a lot to talk about with this one. Can you please bring up the financial, the fiscal budget, the project summary? So I understand that this shows how we're going to be expecting to spend over the course of 5 years, which is a useful exercise. However, can we at least just put it in years 2 through 5, what we plan to, our funding sources and projects? And I know that it's hard for us to do that, but if we're going to be talking about planned expenditures, I don't understand why we won't.
Right.
I mean,
Have it spread out over the.
well, it is. It all matches up. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, to me, it seems like we're focusing more on the long-term, the 5-year expenditure plan, and we're not even trying to say in years 2 through 5, we're going to either fund it through, fund balance.
You're talking about the future funding sources
I'm talking,
on the
yes.
top?
Commissioners, yeah, this is can you show the budget for me? If you were there. So basically, as you heard in the presentation, the city's required to adopt a 5-year CIP each year. And having some history here at the city myself, I can tell you, given this is late November, early December, there was many years where the budget was adopted and was one process. And then the CIP process was a separate one that came forward with a bunch of scrambling around. Can you show the bookmarks, please, Derek? Yeah, if you could view it in the PDF so that we could show the bookmarks or whatever you do in that web viewer there. And with the adoption of the CIP, it was a last minute effort, usually done upstairs in development, who usually does the ER. And we would discover to our chagrin that there are actually about 4 or 5 CIP lists around the city. Public Works has one, Development has one, you know, the manager's office would have one that was more of a pie in the sky kind of thing, like New City Hall, which apparently David Dias is better than the previous city managers got one. And, you know, and then finance had one. So rather than trying to keep that effort down in finance year before last, so the 20 budget was the first time we actually tried to make the CIP adoption and formation part of the budget process so that it actually adhered to what the regulation said, that we would adopt one by September and do that. So we've actually made the city more compliant with, thank you, with the regulation. And to that point, that now you adopt a CIP at the same time that you do your budget. Unfortunately, the users still haven't quite gotten used to the new system. There's still some data that's off the box, as we say. I know Public Works has an extensive list of projects and predicted funding sources, but literally in some of these projects, if we put them in, you know, it would be TBD, to be determined, or yes, as you said, fund balance would be there. And so right now, at least we're getting the projects in, but some of those funding sources actually aren't determined. And so the CIP is categorized into category A, which is a funded project with identified revenues. Category B, which is a project we'd like to do if the money ever comes around to do it. And then project, you know, class C is the, hey, it'd be nice
Right.
to have, you know, an amphitheater, you know, something like that. So that's what those are categorized into. I do know that some of the users knew how to do it because you can see future years there on some of them. And some of the users didn't because we don't see future years on there. So I think it's more of an education effort of getting the users to put their stuff in. My analogy is when you go to H&R Block to do your taxes, they don't go back to your house and get your receipts. You know, you kind of have to bring it to them. So we still are trying to collect this data from the departments on what they believe the funding sources are in the future. The current adopted column definitely identifies a funding source for each project, and it's in the adopted budget of what's going to be paid there.
So, thank you. So am I understanding you correctly that some of the departments may not have been able to include due to technological issues?
Possibly technological issues, or simply the fact of we're waiting on a grant to see if it comes through, and rather than speculatively, you know, puffing up the total document, you know, with some kind of revenue source that we hope to get. I mean, who would have known that we would have gotten $1 million appropriation from the state? You know, even though it was talked about for many, many months before it, you know, no one really knew what the viability of it was.
I guess what I'm asking is not necessarily for the funding sources, but rather for the appropriations. Are you saying that there might be some where there's zeros now in the lower part of this table, grinder system, for instance? Is it possible that there are some planned expenditures in years 2 through 5 that have just not been included in this table?
Absolutely, sir. And I think that there are sub-documents to this adopted document for the budget that probably are more explanatory. It's our effort to try and get those onto the box for us to be able to report them all in one place like this.
Is it at all feasible or within the realm of possibility that by second reading, we might be able to clarify some of those and just at least get confirmation that we don't have let's say in year 3, a, you know, $1 million grinder system item?
The fact that you're saying that at this public meeting, I expect for it to happen almost, you know, instantaneously tonight. I'm sure tomorrow at staff meeting, I will be inundated with offers to provide this data to me. Because I'm sure it's out there and they have it. They just, you know, didn't get to us in the format it needed to be in. But I'm sure since it's here tonight at this meeting, it will happen.
Okay. I mean, I understand. I just, I don't want us to just, you know, comply barely with the intent of the statute. And for our planning purposes here, especially considering the fact that we are heading into who knows what, I really
Mr. Mayor.
I feel like we need to have.
And I understand the purpose of this because this is connected to our financial system and I agree with having it, but that was one of the reasons that I implemented the GIS CIP was because I'm a visual person. And so in that, it also has the approved projects, funding sources, and that's available to the public. It's on our website. And I've sent it to you guys several times as well. But for an analytical deal that they have to send to for the comp plan review, this table type format is what needs to go. But it does need to be, like you said, vetted out.
Okay.
Can I thank
yes.
Pinal? Her projects the CRA's projects do stretch out appropriately. But can I, so for clarification, we're not spending 7.5 million right now on our RO facility.
No, sir, I don't
That's gonna
expect to cut a check for 7 million.
Stretched out.
It would be stretched out, but there are some phases of the project based on when SRF funding is available. They have different funding cycles each year. And sometimes it's a matter of what part of the phase they think, they have to drill a test well first.
Yes.
And then after they draw sample water, they find out what kind of a filtration system needs to be installed. That would be a kind of phase 2. So sometimes they don't know the amount of the next year expense or whatever till it happens. I know that Mr. Peters and Mr. Volker have extensive projections on what the total cost and what it would be in year 2 and 3. And that's what I'm saying is that information exists. It's just in their documents outside of this official document.
I understand. I've had conversations with them and that's probably a bit more complicated than Seminole streetscape improvements.
Yeah, well, Pinal Gandhi Savdas was, parked in finance for several days to make sure that looked the way she wanted it to look. And so, but I told you during the budget workshops that this was, with the COVID and a lot of the employees getting started on this late, there were some of these technical issues that just couldn't be worked through in time for your adoption schedules.
Commissioner McDonald?
The grants, are these grants that we've just have applied for or going to apply for, or are those ones that we've actually been awarded?
We attempt to only put in the budget the grants that have actually been awarded. We've vacillated back and forth over the years. Sometimes we put all the grants in that everyone expected to get. And then because the appropriation side gets adopted, but the revenue side is still an iffy, we've had expenses that weren't funded if the grant was never acquired. So we really try to tell the departments to come forward with grant applications at the time they know that the grant's being awarded. And we're happy to amend the budget at that time to put that expense in there.
And then same with impact fees. Are those impact fees that have been collected already, or?
Impact fees are never budgeted as a collection item. It's kind of like budgeting speeding tickets. It doesn't really happen. It's a wives' tale. So the impact fees are collected as permits are issued, and they are held in reserve, and then they're drawn down as applicable expenses are.
So these are actual impact fees that we have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to get some better, and I completely understand. I'm not saying that I think we need to hold ourselves to years 3 through 5, that we're going to have 10% from CRA TIP funds and 20% from grants and the rest from tree fund. I know that that's all, we have no idea, but I think I want to see at least the projection so that we can make educated decisions here. And then as far as the appropriation side too, better see how to our best ability to anticipate how these projects are going to be drawn out. When I was rereading the fiscal policy document, which, well, actually reading for the first time, I'll admit, I saw that our former policy was to have 5-year planning windows. And I know that things that were challenging this year, I wonder, and it's probably going to be harder than ever to do a 5-year planning window because of the uncertainty of our revenue sources in the future, at least with regard to state revenues. Is that something that we can try to reinstitute moving forward?
Mayor, during the budget workshops, if you recall, we had what we call the gap chart, where we had revenues and expenses, and out in the future they crossed over each other.
Right.
That is a 5-year projection model that we present during the budget. We projected out what ad valorem would wind up at, if we maintain the same millage rate in the course. And so we've run what the deficit is between current revenue sources at their rate of acceleration versus the expenses at their rate of acceleration. And those were charts and graphs in the PowerPoint presentations. In past years, we have included that graph and that study in the budget document, but it sort of it projects that the city will, be broke in 5 years or 10 years or 15, however far out we run it. We actually had 20-year projections at one time. So part of the fiscal policy, which speaking of Commissioner Hershey and Kevin Henderson, actually, when he was a commissioner, was one of the first people to put the fiscal policy in. That policy said that it calls for those, and we do have those models, and we do those projections each year on a 5-year running window at the same time as we're doing the 5-year CIP documents.
Okay.
So it's just we presented those doom and gloom projections during the budget workshop. We didn't put them in the adopted budget document, but I serve at your discretion. If you want to see that budget document and that graph in here and those projections, it certainly will be in there.
I don't need to see the graph per se. I just want to clarify that that the result of this CIP exercise, that the projections that we can assume across all of those appropriations down there, or let's say several of them that are stretching out into the future, that those are also being sort of represented in that graph and chart that shows the.
No, so you can't really project those capital expenditures like that. You can project some of the revenue sources behind it. I would never project to collect grants in the future. And
Right.
Impact fees are driven, they're collected as, if a project happens, a project happens. I mean, there's certain revenues you can project into the future. Property taxes based on historical, sales taxes based on historical.
Right.
But when you're talking about one-time revenue sources, the tree fund is a great, source of revenue. It's only paid when they cut down a tree of a certain size or a certain
Yeah.
age, right? So it's hard to project how many trees are going to be cut down into the future.
Right.
So basically, the ones that we project are retained earnings or fund balance, based on where the funds have been happening, what we expect that to be in there. Water sewer has a very structured funding system that they're required by the bond documents to have a renewal and replacement fund. They have to park away a certain percent of operation each year to fund future repairs and maintenance on the system and to upgrade it in the future. So those kind of revenues can be projected. But when you're saying we're going to do Seminole Street, Pinal can tell me what they expect the Pinal, the expense to be, but projecting CRA revenues, okay. Projecting grants, no.
Okay.
So it's kind of a mishmash of different ones that you can do. That's why we do a lot of to be determined in the future. We'd like to apply for a grant from, DEP for the wave attenuation, out on the floating dock. We'd like to do all that stuff.
Just to be clear, I'm not really talking about the funding sources as much as I am about the bottom section of that.
Yeah,
which is
the expenses when they're one-time projects.
Right.
To project that I'm going to spend $7 million on a water plant every year for the next 20 years. No.
Right.
But to know that they think it's a 5-year program, a 5-year project to completion, yes.
Okay. And then I had a discussion with Mr. Mortel about our level of service. And I thought maybe, bring it up now and perhaps we could kind of revisit it separately if we need to. But with our level of service table, would you bring that up? I'm particularly interested in the transportation facilities. I have complete faith in our utilities and public works division to tell us if a new development that we're approving is going to be served adequately by the current water and sanitary sewer facilities we have. I trust you all to give us the straight dope on that. But looking at roads, okay, great. So the transportation facilities, that kind of made me think a little bit about, we have been having, there's definitely traffic on US 1 and on Canner. And I wonder, what is the level of service of E? That to me means the street, that the roadway is open, but it could be in back-to-back traffic for hours. Can you talk about what E means?
Well, yeah, there's a certain capacity of a roadway, depending on the lanes and also there's some configuration. And those capacities could be, for instance, in US 1 could be 40 38,000, 48,000 a day, average trips a day. And so E means that it's not past that point where it's failing. The roadway is not after, out of capacity. And the county does the trip counts every year, and they update those things to let us know where we are in terms of the LOS. I have to say that US 1, for instance, is one of those exempt. Well, certain segments of US 1 are some of those segments that are exempt from the LOSE because they do not meet that capacity. They are over capacity.
Yeah, Commissioner?
A lot of this part regarding the transportation facilities and level of service of roads is really dealt with at the MPO. And it's incredibly challenging to understand when you get into level of service, but the actual level of service, A is the best,
Right.
failing is the worst, but you actually want like a C or a D versus.
You don't want unused roads.
Right. Well,
You don't want.
that's exactly right. And so when you think about when you start looking at changing capacity, it's a challenging discussion. But again, that's really where making sure we have robust representation in the MPO and is so important because the MPO is working on and getting those federal funds that are coming through either the county or the state or through, in a case that where we've been very successful is TAP grants. So I think that that's just more of an understanding of that side of things. But it is a challenge to.
From a portion of history, I will say that almost 20 years ago, FDOT wanted to widen from Jensen Beach Boulevard to the Roosevelt Bridge to eight lanes or 4 lanes in each direction instead of 3. And they actually had a proposal of doing a flyover over Jensen Beach Boulevard to keep the traffic flowing. Obviously, the county rejected the flyover on Jensen Beach Boulevard, and the city commission voted, as Mr. Mayor pointed out, to make that portion of US 1 exempt from any concurrency. So it doesn't have a level of service because FDOT says that it's not performing at the level they want. So the level of service doesn't really give you any information as it relates to the Roosevelt Bridge to Jensen Beach Boulevard.
I guess I'm just trying to throw out a discussion point for all of us for those roads that are not exempt and which we manage. And again, I'm the guy that believes we should develop in our urban core. I'm not trying to use this as a way to stymie development, but how do we feel about having a level of service of E as our criteria? I mean, should we talk about whether or not it makes more sense to be easier on our residents if we want to look for a D, and we'll have that at plan review?
Well, one of the things I would say is that I don't think we're allowed to use. I think there's actually a law against using concurrency to affect development, but because I think that because the county did that a number of years ago and got in a lot of
They
trouble
entered a
for it.
moratorium.
Yeah, they did a moratorium using concurrency to create a moratorium. But I think that when you talk about our traffic, and I'll use Colorado Avenue, for example, from Confusion Corner to US 1, on a really bad traffic a day, it takes like 3 minutes. And if you think about the go from one end to the other, so when you think about if you go someplace like West Palm Beach or God forbid, Miami, where that same distance might take you an hour.
We also decreased its level of service. We
Right,
changed it from
yeah,
4
we
lanes
lowered
to
it.
2.
Yeah. So I think that so there is some of that, but I'm also still a believer that there are some things that we can do, and one of the things that I still would love to see completed is the Willoughby extension. But I'm not sure exactly if that's completely dead in the water or not. But
I would just say that what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, with that level of service along that US 1 corridor and the increase in density and the number of traffic in the backup you see, and I'm speaking from a law enforcement perspective, when the city made that decision that we only want 3 lanes on each side was the bottleneck. And now I don't think you'll ever get the right of way to be able to increase those lanes, but that is the bottleneck that moves the north and south of the bridge. And so during season, you get backups way past Colorado and down Canner Highway every day.
but compared to Olive Avenue and West Palm Beach,
Right,
it's
right.
95.
And if we had widened it, we wouldn't hear those complaints, but we would have more and more people. If we build it, they're gonna come.
Well, and it's not even that, the Dwani report didn't point out that we'd have more people because at the time, Port St. Lucie
St.
was less than
Lucie.
100,000 people, now
Right.
it's 190,000.
Exactly.
The reality
traffic
is that
isn't
it was
just-
the volume of traffic would be going by at 55 miles an hour instead of 35.
Yeah, the service level isn't just City of Stuart residents. As Commissioner McDonald pointed out, this is stuff that, is kind of discussed at the MPO regional level.
Okay.
Busiest intersection in the county is US 1 in Colorado. I think something like 60 or 70,000 cars a day go through that.
That sounds about right. Any other questions or points for discussion? Seeing none, is there any public comment before we call for a vote? Any online, please raise your hand. Seeing none, Ms. Kendall, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Bruner,
Yes.
Commissioner Matheson,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Mayor Meyer.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn at 6:52 PM.
50% remaining
Of your time?
of my battery.
Mine was boring.
So is this the